It's the day after Miami selected Kasparas Jakucionis in the draft, and we looked at how experts around the league view the pick and his potential fit with the team on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. For daily content on the Heat, click that subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you are following us on your podcast app. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Have a great show for you today. Adam Simon talks about Kasparas Jakucionis and getting him at 20. Not everybody thinks the Heat got a steal there, but I want to start with a roundup of draft grades from the experts to get some different point of views on the Heat's pick. So we got positive draft grades from ESPN, The Ringer, and CBS Sports. I want to start with what Jonathan Givony called one of the best picks in the draft. He said, he wrote, he'll also fit in perfectly from a culture and toughness perspective. Jakucionis' ability to play any of the backcourt positions gives the Heat significant lineup flexibility when operating alongside Tyler Hero in the backcourt. It wouldn't be surprising to see him eventually emerge as the franchise's future point guard, thanks to the savvy he displays running pick and roll and his exceptional feel for the game. David, you don't find many starting point guards at 20.
No, but he wasn't supposed to be selected at 20, and that's what we've what we were so surprised on draft night and why we were so excited about it is because this was a what many people had thought was a top 10, top 15 at the very least talent, and somehow he wound up dropping to Miami at 20th. And his fit with the team just seems to, the more I think about it, it just seems like such a great balanced fit and one player that is going to be able to help so many of the others on this roster as he continues to find and polish his game and develop it even further. So I maybe point guard of the future seems a little bit hyperbolic, but I don't see why it can't be that. I don't see why a player can't, especially in today's draft process, where I think players, because there's less time for them to develop at the collegiate level or internationally, and they're entering the drafts younger than they ever have before, the ability to kind of find that polish and find the balanced nuances of their game isn't something that they're going to do at that level, so that it takes them a couple of years professionally in order to find that rhythm. The 20th pick could wind up having as long or even longer of a career than a top 5 pick. And I think that's going to continue to change as this draft just, as it continues to evolve the way it has. So I see Jakucionis as a player that has a potentially long career of being a very productive pick and roll player in the league because of his court vision, because of his size, because of his ability to unlock the offense for other players.
I like the fact that he's played in 2 different leagues. I like the fact that he played in Spain, and I like that he played college ball, because he's 19 years old, but he's already seen so many different pictures. He's seen the pictures in Europe basketball. He's seen the pictures in college basketball. And as a point guard, just having all of that information stored in your head, right? He's already uploaded so much information that you always hear about his processing speed when you talk to scouts and you read these things and all that stuff. That might be a big reason why, right? Because he's just seen so much already. And I'm not saying he's not Chris Paul, obviously, but he's, for somebody his age, he's just seen a lot. And that stuff is really helpful. And you hear the Heat talk about the pick afterwards, and we'll play you some sound a little bit later, but that's a big deal for them. They did not meet with him before the draft, but they did talk with him in the Chicago Combine. This whole they didn't have the private workout before the draft. That stuff is so overblown, whether it's Utah taking Ace Bailey at 5 or Miami taking Jakucionis here at 20, but they do meet with these guys at the Combine in Chicago. And they had to sit down with Jakucionis, and they liked the character stuff, and they liked the tape that they saw, and they really liked the European tape that they saw from him too, and the tournaments that he played, again, against a lot of different kinds of competition there. I want to read you another review here. The Ringer gave Miami an A for this pick. The Heat are getting the second most creative playmaker in the draft behind only Yegor Demin. The most important detail here is that Kasparas is very capable of scaling down, playing off the ball, and bringing that creativity to the second or third action of the offense. which will be important in a system where Tyler Hero will often eat first. The common thread here, David, with these first two grades and reviews, he doesn't need the ball to impact the game. And you look at a lot of big boards, and on my big board, I had him over Yegor Demon. Most people had him over Yegor Demon. That's the big difference between somebody like Jakucionis and Demon. The big thing on Demon was he kind of needs the ball to make an impact because the outside shot just isn't there for him. Jakucionis, people really do buy the outside shot with him quite a bit. And that ability to not need the ball, that's a big thing in the NBA, because if you don't have an outside shot, then teams start playing off of you. You got to have the ball to make an impact. And that means other guys don't have the ball in their hands, obviously. That's to me the biggest difference between him and Yegor Demon.
Yeah, for him to be able to be that kind of a player and still be displaying the creativity and playmaking and everything else like that, but still be able to find other ways to impact on teams' offense. It just seems, again, that it gives Miami a lot of versatility that they might not have had before. We've talked about it before. They don't have anybody elite in pick and roll possessions. They don't have anybody that can just create offense very easily. And I think with a guy like Jakucionis, that is all going to change. So with ball, off ball, or on ball, I think that he's going to be able to make a positive impact almost immediately. So I really like the selection. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but I know some people not quite as high on it as others, but I just don't see how a player of his talent, given what Miami's needs were offensively, how he doesn't fit and how he can't make a positive impact right away.
There was sort of three guards in this like cohort of guys who were like 6'5", 6'6", European type of deal. Yegor Demon, Jonas Jakucionis, or Kasparas Jakucionis, and Ben Saraf.
Yes.
And with Saraf and with Demon, the outside shot was the biggest concern point on most scouting reports. That was not an issue for Jakucionis here. And so the fact that he was there at 20 is pretty crazy, and that Brooklyn passed on him, whatever it was, 33 times, and then ended up taking Saraf later and Demon before him.
Yeah.
I don't get it. But here's my favorite review. This is from CBS Sports. Also gave Miami an A for the pick. Quote, I understand the concerns. His skill and his basketball acumen are his best assets. He has good size, skill, and processing instincts. However, he didn't shoot the three particularly well, and he had a high turnover rate. I understand why people are nervous, but you just put a chip on this guy's shoulder and sent him to the Miami Heat. This is terrific value. If you're a Heat fan, you're ecstatic about this. You're rebuilding without bottoming out. They're not interested in tanking, end quote. The most effusive review we've read so far.
Amazing. Yeah. And I love that it measures that kind of that toughness, the competitive spirit, and that he's going to have that chip on his shoulder. I mean, we all know the story. He's told it a billion times to anybody who's listened, but Draymond knowing all the players selected before him and stuff like that. So while I think that does happen pretty frequently, that you have that as motivation, because as I've said a million times, players at this level, in order to be motivated from the long season, have to find those kinds of slights to use them as fuel. And if he already has one in his bag right now, it's like, oh, you're going to let me drop to 20?
Oh, just wait until Miami plays Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. He's going to cook their ass. It's going to be awesome. It's great. I love it. I can't wait.
Meanwhile, some analysts not as high on the pick for Miami will tell you why they make a fair point, perhaps, after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Skims. When I found out that Skims was making underwear for men, well, I was intrigued. I've heard so much about their quality from friends and family, and I just had to give it a try. And let me tell you, it lives up to the hype. I've always had issues with underwear, whether it's a fit or comfort or just finding the right style. But Skims has changed all that. Their men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with a perfect balance of comfort and style. I tried their boxer briefs, and let me tell you, I'm hooked, and you will be too. They're perfect for an active lifestyle. They move with you. They never lose their shape, and they stay in place all day. Whether you're working out or just running errands, going around town, they're the most comfortable and reliable underwear I've ever owned. Plus, the lightweight material feels amazing, almost like you're wearing nothing at all. So shop Skims Men's at skims.com. That's skims.com. Let them know we sent you. After you place an order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows at skims.com. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Continuing on with the trade grades, draft grades, not everybody was as positive as the last few that we read. Here's Yahoo's Kevin O'Connor. Quote, the Heat were probably hoping for Walter Clayton Jr. with this pick. For every beautiful assist Jakucionis had as a freshman, there's an equally ugly boneheaded turnover. He had 11 games this past season with more turnovers than made shots. As a primary creator, he's not a Tyrese Halliburton type. Think more along the lines of Spencer Dinwiddie. He's one of your guys on the roster, but he's not the guy. KOC gives him a D+ for the pick. I understand the concerns with Jakucionis, right? He wasn't the number one pick. I understand the concerns. This is way too harsh, I think.
Yeah, I don't get it. It seems like he devalues his game. He's like this overemphasis on the turnovers that we've had several people kind of explain that were due to injury. And my own thought process, and I haven't seen him. Like maybe it just requires a much deeper dive, and I'll cop to it 100% that I have not seen every minute of Jakucionis play. But I just think that turnovers are bound to happen at the collegiate level because of the quality of your teammates, and I just think that you're going to have opportunities there to make plays. And at the NBA level, as long as you have, and you pointed this out yesterday, as long as you have the willingness to make the play and the ability to make those plays, it'll pick up. Everybody's going to be able to catch the ball at a high level. You're going to be able to see the floor. He plays at his pace, and I just think that was part of the problem, is that maybe some of his teammates weren't playing at that same pace. And so I get it. You would say maybe as a point guard, you're supposed to be able to adjust and kind of drop your game a little bit. Well, maybe he just didn't have the opportunity to polish that particular aspect of his game. I don't think the turnovers are as big a concern. We'll see. But even then, again, I just think teammates can find a way to correct that. If he's not such a bad passer or playmaker that he's throwing the ball into the stands, or you're just completely dribbling it off his foot or anything like that. It's just, sometimes these things happen over the course of a game, and
Right.
I think that there will be corrected at the NBA level. And just this assessment of his ability from Kevin O'Connor, I just don't get it. I don't. Again, you always have to have one person who kind of just says, you know what, I don't like the pick, but I don't agree with his assessment. I think it was way too harsh, and I don't think it takes his ability into consideration.
The Illinois basketball coach, Brad Underwood, said that when Jakucionis is around NBA players, he's going to be even better. And that kind of speaks to what you were just talking about.
Yep.
I believe that, right? Here's the thing with turnovers, and you touched on this. There's real boneheaded turnovers. There's dribbling the ball off your foot. There's making the wrong read at the wrong time. And then there's, you hesitate to say anything excusable. But I remember when I was covering Golden State, and Steve Kerr used to talk about this all the time with Steph Curry. It's one thing to try to make the home run play all the time. And sometimes it's amazing and it leads to those amazing Steph Curry moments. And then other times it leads to a turnover and a basket going the other way and a pick six. And the positives come with the negatives, right? When you try to sling that creative pass, you're not always going to hit that. You're not always going to hit your target through the tight window. And for Jakucionis, he's got the willingness and the creativity to find those windows and try it. He's got to have to dial it back. Those turnovers are extremely frustrating. I get it. He's 19 years old. I like that he's out there slinging it. I like that he's out there trying it. Go try it. I'd rather you have that creativity and then work to dial it back and harness it than try to teach you something that's unteachable, such as creativity. Right. And that's on the coaching staff. So I don't know if KOC had him 14 on his board. Miami got him at 20 and he gave him a D+. Maybe he just doesn't like the fit. But if he doesn't like the fit, I don't think you're accounting for Miami's development program, which has been proven now to be very. Look what they have done with Tyler Hero. I bring this up all the time, but I think it's worth repeating. John Calipari literally told me in a phone call, I told him not to pass the ball at Kentucky because bad things happen more often than good things happen. And now Tyler Hero was the primary, and he's not an amazing playmaker. I'm not telling you that. But given where he was when he came into the league, when his college coach was saying, don't pass it. If you get the ball, just shoot it. Because we're better off with that happening than you turning it over with a pass. Going from that to where he is now is pretty remarkable. So now you have a guy with elite feel and instincts and pick and roll ability already, who's considered the second best pick and roll ball handler in the draft.
Yeah.
and then you're bringing him into the system. I trust this development staff and Eric Spoelstra and this coaching staff to harness that ability and get the most out of him.
I just think I was gonna say no. I was just gonna say like he just strikes me as a type of guy that other teammates at the professional level are gonna love to play with because he's gonna do such a good job of trying to find them, get them in their spots.
Such a great point.
And I think they're gonna want to put him in the starting lineup.
And
just because
teammates will they're okay with that. They're okay with the turnover because you tried something.
A lot of my bad.
Like,
you try to get me the ball.
Yeah, that's all exactly. You were passing it to me. It didn't quite make it there, but the intent was right, and we're going to work on that. I want to go to John Hellinger from The Athletic. Not as harsh, but wasn't the biggest fan of this pick. This is a bit of a slide for Jakucionis, who is seen by many as a potential top 10 pick, but I also think it's a more realistic landing spot for a guy who probably projects as a combo guard off the bench more than a long-term starter. Miami could use a guy like him, though, because he can handle the ball and shoot step-back threes. He offers a nice contrast in the backcourt to defensive bulldog Davion Mitchell. So, again, not as harsh as KOC, but I do think he's saying something similar in terms of probably not a long-term starter, projects more as a utility backup. I think that's kind of what Kevin O'Connor was saying there. But he was just way over the top harsh, I thought, on Miami picking at 20.
Yeah, but I'd rather just focus on the positive of what Hollinger was saying. Like I think that he appreciates that he can be a good playmaker and a guy that will make an impact that way, and that he offers a little bit more versatility than just having Davion on there. So for our team that needed a point guard, and how many times did we hear from our fans they need a playmaker, they need a passer, somebody that can get well, this is exactly what Miami went and got. Maybe it was unexpected. Maybe there were other players on that roster, or I'm sorry, in the draft that might have been available at number 20. But I think this is a guy who fits exactly what Miami needs, even if it wasn't somebody that a lot of people thought would slide to the number 20th pick in the draft. So I think it's a home run, to be honest with you.
And if he does end up being a career backup, that's
not
still
a bad
good
thing.
Player at 20. We're talking about the 20th pick in the draft. I did a little dive on the last 25 drafts. Point guards that were taken at 20. Jameer Nelson, DeLon Wright.
Yeah.
I mean, DeLon Wright's been in the league for a while-ish. I wouldn't consider him with the super. It would be a little disappointing if he had a DeLon Wright career, if Jakucionis had. But Jameer Nelson was a long-term starter, right, with Orlando and with Denver. I mean, that was he an all-star once?
Yeah, he was. Well,
yeah, that would be a home run.
Yeah. Maybe I'm misspeaking, but I could have sworn he was at some point, but I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, you might be right. In Denver,
one time
or Orlando?
All-Star. Yeah, Orlando, I think.
Good for him. All right, so those are the grades. I think overall we side with the positive ones. But again, if he's Spencer Dinwiddie has not had a bad career, even going back to KOC's thing. If you get a career rotation guard at 20, that's a good result. I tend to think, though, that he's going to end up, I think he's in the perfect spot, and I'll go back to what CBS said. You just sent him, you put a chip on his shoulder and send him to the Miami Heat. And one thing that keeps coming up with this guy is his character and his toughness. We'll hear what the Heat had to say about Jakucionis and why they picked him, and we'll hear from the rookie himself after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Well, maybe it's game day and you just suddenly realize, you know what, I want to be in the stands. Well, that's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Bring them all over. Game Time makes it possible. They make buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Listen, you know what? The Marlins might not be the best team in Major League Baseball, but it's still a good watch. And sometimes you won't want to pay full price on those tickets, but guess what? You wait till right before or maybe right after first pitch, and all of a sudden a ticket that might have been out of your reach is perfectly reasonably priced, and you just go and pick up that ticket, and you have a great 2.5-hour experience at the ballpark, eating great food, and the food is great. Their menu options are so much better. They've got so many different things to enjoy about the game. I love taking my son there, and you know what? You'll enjoy it too. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. Get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA, and you get $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We'll be right back.
Heat general manager Adam Simon spoke to the media on Wednesday night. Here's a little snippet of what he had to say.
Out is his strong ball handling, ability to like read and make plays, his toughness, and overall ability to like get downhill and finish at the rim. We see tremendous potential with Kaz, and you're talking about a 6'5" and 3/4 +3, good athlete, but with a high IQ. And so if you combine all those things, I mean, with a work ethic, I think you can mold. There's no reason why you can't mold him into a very good NBA player, and I think that's why we were attracted to taking him tonight.
So I love the term toughness again there from Adam Simon. He talked about getting downhill and all the things that we've talked about from a skill level, but you could tell in their work that they did with him, and you can even hear it in that clip. They met with him. They met with him in Chicago, even if they didn't get the private workout. And then the Miami actually tried to bring him in for a private workout, and it didn't work out. And sometimes that's just what happens, right? Schedules and things like this, it's hectic. But they met with him in Chicago. They felt good about him, and they sat down with him. And toughness is the thing that keeps coming up with this kid. Toughness, character, gym rat. You just hear it over and over.
Work ethic, yeah. Simon just said it right now. The work ethic, what he's actually shown in terms of his ability, in combination with the toughness and work ethic, these intangibles. And we talked about it how many times? And looking at Miami's approach to the draft, they need high character players. They need players that will embrace what Miami has defined themselves by in terms of what Heat culture is, the accountability, the willingness to put in the work. And yes, you have to have a baseline level of talent, but in order for you to realize your full potential, you need to put in the work, and the work in which Miami will ask of you and expect of you. And that's what's going to help him become a great player. And the more I think about it, the more I really like the pick for Miami, because you're just hearing about all these other things that just didn't seem like they were as much of a factor prior to the draft. And now all of a sudden he gets selected by Miami, and you start to hear about all these kind of accolades about the intangibles. And the focus before was on his passing and playmaking and why he was such a great fit. All that was great. All of that was enough to make him a top 12-ish pick. And yet somehow he winds up dropping to 20, and he winds up having all these other things that make him such what makes him profile as a really solid contributor and maybe even a potentially great player. So I think there's a lot to like about the selection.
We had Tyler Metcalf on from No Ceilings for a 10-minute interview that went up on your podcast feed and YouTube feeds yesterday. And one of the stories that he shared in our interview was how during the games he'll go around the arena and even in road games, go around the arena and find any Illinois fan and start signing their jersey or whatever it is, paraphernalia that they have.
Right.
And that's probably not the number one reason why you draft a guy.
No.
But I like that it's on the list somewhere, down on the bottom of the list, but it's on the list somewhere. And I like that stuff. I love that character stuff. And we know what Miami is looking for, right? We know character-wise, at least, what they're looking for. They want somebody that's going to come in and work. That's not going to be shy about doing the work. That's not going to be intimidated by the amount of work that it takes to be in that Heat building. And if there is a common thread with the last 4 picks that they've taken, all of those guys share that quality. Even Kel'el where people literally doubted that quality.
Yes.
They did not doubt that. And all season long, you and I heard this all year long with Kel'el. Sponge, work ethic, really wants it, all that stuff. And he applied himself, and we saw the difference between Kel'el at the beginning of the year to the end of the year. I mean, the proof was in the pudding there. So if they see it in Kasparas, then I believe
Kaz.
So I wanted to go there.
Kaz. Yeah.
I love that he called him Kaz. And that's
same.
not a nickname that's out there on the internet with him.
No.
KJ is the most common nickname. K-Jack is another one that's out there. I guess some fans at Illinois also used asparagus as more of a playful nickname.
I saw
like
some people in
Kaz.
our comments. Yeah, I saw some people in our comments call him Ghost.
Ghost?
Ghost. I don't know if that's like an established nickname. I don't know if that's something like
Is that internet lingo
I
that we
like
don't
it.
understand?
Yeah, I don't know. No, I just I don't know.
Jakucionis, Ghost. Where would Ghost come from? Oh,
I don't know.
Casper.
Oh, maybe.
Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Nice.
Okay,
Not
I
so
like
friendly in
Ghost.
this
Ghost
case.
is a kind of a sick nickname.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Go on in, Ghost.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah,
on in, Ghost.
I like it.
It's
Yeah,
got
'cause he
it's
gets
got a little of Top Gun vibes, right?
I like it.
Over your left flank, Ghost. Over your left flank, Ghost. Let's hear from Ghost.
Happy to be the part of Miami culture, and like I said before, it's all about toughness, all about winning, and
Toughness.
and I want that. I think that's what basketball is about, and that's how you succeed.
There it is again. Toughness.
Yeah. We were at the draft, and I thought they might go like a international player, because I just think that, again, the college system, it's not that always going to be towards
It's failing a lot of prospects. Just call it as it is. It is.
Yeah, you don't want to be too harsh, but I think that's fair to say that. And then for a player that's at 19, if you've got to select a player so much younger than you did 5-10 years ago, you have to have some kind of a sample of work. And at the international level, they can play professional basketball from such an early age that they're already tested. So you already know what you're getting. It's not that it's going to finish product, but between Kaz and Jovic, you already see what these guys can do, play against grown men at a professional level, and that's really impressive. And so I think that's kind of something how you just have to be able to appreciate what you can get from an international level player. And look, I mean, it's funny. Just a few years ago, it was used to attack Luka. It's like, oh well, he didn't play against college players. I think it panned out okay. I think he's been able to figure out the NBA game to some degree. So I don't think you can hold it against him as much as you did a few years ago. But I think, if anything, that's kind of flipped the script to say, you know what, playing against at the international level, playing against that kind of talent might actually help these kids, because between AAU and the college system, like we talked about, a number of players that had missed like whole chunks of their college career, but they're still considered good enough prospects where even after only playing a handful of games, they might never really get the college experience, and somehow they're going to go into the NBA right away. It's like you're basically drafting high schoolers again. And we know that as much as you can get a Kevin Garnett or a Kobe Bryant, you can also get, maybe a Darrell Wright or even others. There's Leon Powell, I think, was another high schooler that just didn't pan out. There's a lot of guys like that. And so it's just, I think this is a real slam dunk for Miami.
And I think Miami agrees, by the way, because you look at the roster, they took an international guy this time who played a year at college. I don't mean to dismiss the year at college.
No doubt.
Nikola Jovic a few years ago, and Pelle Larsson last year, who played at Arizona but grew up international ball, right?
Yeah.
We got like a little international corner in the locker room going on right now, which is pretty fun.
I saw a Facebook post that already like Miami's building like their own boy band with Pelle Larsson, Jovic, Jaquez,
It is a little boy bandy. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen today. For your second listen, find the Locked On NBA podcast, where there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.